only ends one way. These sands of time wait for no one. The end draws near.
Be not disheartened.
Freezing strike!
Clear. Stay light on your feet.
It is done.
That was an impressive display. Beware the scorpion's sting.
Chill!
This was the end of the time. But this baton is our sacred duty.
Come, Taljari. I shall enact your fate.
I accept your challenge, Jin.
Rid yourself of your illusions.
I cannot.
Your fate binds you. The sands of time wait for no one. The sound runs low. You surprise me, Taljari, but you have yet to cast off the shackles of fate. You are not in control.
Hey guys, Dahbadu here. Hopefully you enjoyed the gameplay footage. So I just want to provide a build update. I've changed a couple of things about my character. I've tweaked a couple of things and optimized them. And importantly, I've come out with a new loot filter, which will be linked in the video description and in the YouTube comments. And I've come out with a mobalytics guide, which will be linked in the YouTube description and YouTube comments. And so feel free to click on those links and it will kind of clarify all the planned gem setups that I have, all the gear that I would suggest you try to acquire, basically everything about this build. And you know, hopefully it'll answer some questions that you may have as well. And I'll be updating it as time goes on and you know, more questions people have. And as I, you know, continue to further optimize this character, but I think this character's at a pretty good spot right now. Like I'm able to handle T16s and you know, my gear isn't as good as like what I see from other content creators, and my build seems to be performing pretty well with the gear that I have. So let me go over the gear that I have, and so you can judge it yourself. And you know, you saw the gameplay footage and you saw how the build performed. So this is my staff. It was shown in the video. I lucky slammed it in the video. I got some flat fizz damage on it, which was really nice. You know, in terms of the staff you're looking for yourself, you want basically critical hit chance, and you want a high fizz damage roll. Other things are nice as well. You're going to need attributes in this build, so might as well get dexterity on the staff. I also need to get dexterity on my gloves as well. Another thing of note is my dexterity intelligence isn't that high right now, and I'm kind of bumping into skill gems and gear requirement issues. And so what that means is you probably want an amulet with all attributes on it. You know, I wanted to try out, you know, increased crit chance. This build really benefits from crit chance. Like right now I have a 45% chance to crit or 46% chance to crit with my ice strike. And you know, when I crit, I ignore the monster's elemental resistance and I shoot out icy waves at the monster as well, which are pretty strong. This is the icy waves there. And that's, you know, you saw that in the video. So not only do I shoot out projectiles from my charge staff, but I also shoot projectiles out from my elemental expression, and I believe it always shoots out icy waves. The support gems that I have don't exactly match the support gems in the mobalytics guide right now, mainly because I don't have, you know, 6 sockets on most of my skills. I only have 6 socket on one skill right now. And, you know, once I get more supports on more of my gems, I can kind of play musical gems, if you will, or musical support gems and switch them up a bit. But I'm pretty sure the gem setup that I have, the theory crafted gem setup that I have in the mobalytics guide is probably the ideal gem setup. But just for example, my eye strike right now at 6, and this is the most important skill that you're going to be using, is martial tempo, crescendo, close combat, primal armament, and rising tempest, and that is reflected in the mobalytics guide. But there are some things that are a little different. So for right now, I'm using like I have blind and I have cold exposure on elemental expression. I'm doing that because I don't have 6 linked on my charge staff right now, and charge staff is like the second most important thing to 6 link. This automatically 6 links as you level up because this is from your Ascendancy elemental expression. And just for curiosity's sake, and it is covered in the mobalytics guide, but I have concentrated effect, considered casting, and I have blind, scatter shot, and cold exposure. Once I get 6 sockets on more of my skills, I'm going to take blind and cold exposure out of here, and I'm just going to stick on cold mastery and lightning mastery on this skill because it is a, you know, it's a tri-elemental skill, and it can benefit from both of those. And the extra gem level on here, making it 21 and then 22, is actually quite significant. And you know, with the considered casting and concentrated effect, it actually can hit pretty hard. So what else should I cover? Let's just kind of go over the rest of my gear actually before I get on too many tangents. So this is my staff. This is an unset ring. You're going to want to have an unset ring in the build. I like added flat fire damage because I like to proc ignite because I want that third elemental ailment on the enemies. I don't really have a source of ignite other than my flat fire damage on my build, and therefore I would say I'm partial to, if you're gonna pick added flat damage, for this build I would say fire, just so you can have that, you know, third elemental effect. So your bell like kind of catches, when you drop your Tempest bell, it kind of catches on fire and things like that. So, but also of note is this build will go through a lot of mana. And so you're going to want to get mana on your gear, and you're going to want to get mana regen as well. So like flat mana and mana regen for jewelry, I would say that's a priority. And of course, resistances as well. For your amulet, I would suggest probably all attributes instead of increased critical hit chance, because what's going on right now is I don't have enough attributes yet in my build because I'm not pathing on the tree to collect a bunch of attributes. Like I go through here, which is nice, and get some attributes, but this is basically as much pathing as I'm going to do on the tree. I'm level 92, and from here I'm probably just going to buy out stuff that I've already pathed to, like get the hybrid energy shield innovation from here. Maybe pick up some like little chances to crit here, like a 10% here, or 12% here, or 12% here. So if I can get my crit over to like 51 or higher than that, it's quite comfortable. Now of note, I can shoot out with Elemental Evocation. I do shoot out Eyes of Winter, and those do put critical weaknesses on monsters, which adds flat crit to them. And so, if I'm shooting out 5 of these and it hits the monster like 30 something times, like basically I have 100% chance to crit, and therefore I have 100% chance to ignore the monster's elemental resistance. And every time I hit the monster, I'm going to shoot out at least up to 4 times a second. I'm going to shoot out the icy waves plus my charge staff shockwaves. So basically every hit is like 3 hits, and etc. But it's working out quite well. And I just want to point that out, that don't overlook attributes. Like, you're going to need dex, so might as well, you can get it on your staff, you can get it on your gloves. But if I had an all attribute affix here, that would make life much more comfortable for this character, and I'd be able to also incorporate higher levels, like temporal chains. So in my Hand of Chayula, I have Voltaic Mark, which takes some dexterity, but I also have temp chains, right? And so I'm running only a level 14 temp chains because I only have 36 dexterity. To run higher levels, you need 155 dexterity and higher than that. And it's getting to a point where my 181 dexterity isn't high enough to use like level 20 dexterity gems. And that's something that I'm going to have to work on. My gems are like level 19 and 18 and things like that right now. I haven't gotten a level 20 upgrade yet. But that's kind of my gem setup. And again, just refer to the Mobalytics guide. I have the information in there. I just kind of want to cover things and just talk to the camera a little bit. Now, what's also important is this ring, okay? This is the only unique that's in this build. I don't think you need other uniques in this build. Like, there are some powerful uniques in, jewels and belts and stuff. Like, there's chase items in the game that I see, like a lot of streamers running. You don't need this. This seems to be fine. I mean, I haven't done the end game bosses yet, but, I'm doing tier 16 maps. I'm not having problems with them. I've rarely died over the last 2 levels or so. This build seems pretty safe, especially with this ring. And so why does this ring make this build so great? And why do you want it? So first of all, this ring can be like 10 to 30 exalts, depending on the role. You might even be able to get it cheaper than that. Probably like a really good roll would be like a divine or whatever. So just that's kind of what you're looking at for the price tag on this ring. It isn't that expensive, but it's it's not like 1 exalt, okay? But how this works is because you have this ascendancy, I am the blizzard. Whenever you freeze an enemy, it creates chilled ground around them. And if there's monsters that are next to that enemy, they're on the chilled ground, and therefore those monsters are chilled. So there's a frozen enemy, and there's chilled ground around the frozen enemy because of this ascendancy, and the monsters are chilled on the chilled ground. They're not frozen, but they're chilled on the chilled ground. However, any enemies that are chilled, such as enemies on chilled ground, are considered essentially as frozen in terms of they get shattered. So what happens is you have these chain reaction shatters through Herald of Ice, and it adds a lot of quality of life and screen clear and like just almost defensive mechanics to this build, because you end up kind of blowing up all the monsters around you, not just the monster you're attacking, and or in the area that you're attacking. So it's quite useful. You're going to want another thing is, you will need to have basically 190 spirit for this build to fit in all of the passive buffs. So you're going to need to get a combination of 90 spirit from your chest and amulet. That's also something that's important. In terms of just the gear, though, your focuses are on getting resistances and high energy shield and evasion rolls. Mana regen is nice. Flat mana is useful. Flat damage is nice for the gloves. Like attack speed's great as well. There's lots of great suffixes for gloves. Unfortunately, if you're not running around with super expensive gear, like you're not going to always have the highest tier affixes for your resistances, and therefore, like you're going to have, I would suggest gloves with resistances if you don't have perfect affixes everywhere else. Okay. What's important is to cap your resistances. I would suggest overcapping them a little bit. This way, if you go into a map with elemental weakness, you'll still have 75 resistance because you're already overcapped. It won't lower you that much. And also, if you have interfaith, that helps a little bit against curses on maps as well. For the belt, you want resistances. In terms of extra charms, like I'm getting frozen doesn't happen that often with me anymore. I believe I do have like freeze duration reduction on the boots, which is helpful. Ignite is also kind of a scary thing. I'd probably say Ignite and Freeze are the most scary elements in this game. I'm not too scared about Shock right now, mainly partly due to the fact that I'm more of like an evasion character, so I just don't get hit that much. Gloves, I got the Dex because I'm still trying to get Dexterity, and I'm going to have to get a new amulet to give me more attributes because, again, I want to use higher level skill gems. The boots, I crafted an item that was worth 3 divines. It was like a hat, I believe. And I sold it, and I used that money to buy a pair of boots because I've been rocking like a 25% move speed boots for the longest time, and it was so nice to get a 35% move speed boots. These boots cost me, I believe, 3 divines or 2 divines. I really like them. They're very effective. There's a nice stat stick, basically. The hat, yeah, again, like I said, evasion, energy shield. Now, in terms of the runes, you probably want mana regeneration runes. So definitely for the gloves, I would suggest mana regeneration runes. For the boots, it depends on basically the energy shield and evasion in the boots, because these boots have pretty high energy shield and evasion. I decided to stick an iron rune on here. For the body armor, I would probably suggest iron runes as well, because you can get pretty high base evasion, energy shield. For the hat also has higher energy shield and evasion base, so an iron rune could also work for there as well. But for any of these smaller slots, like mana regeneration may be better depending on the stats of the item. So just keep that in mind. In this case, like the gloves, I definitely, mana regeneration was an important thing, and I am trying to fit mana regeneration in this build because you use a lot of mana with this build. Because you're so that's how much mana I burn just with like ice striking. I have a significant amount of mana actually compared to a lot of monks that I see, and my mana regen is actually pretty high as well. So it's like 175, right? And if I can get my crit much like higher right now, my crit is at like 45%. Yeah, 45% or 46, closer to 46. But you know, if somehow I get like a crit up to like a 70%, like I'll be chewing through a lot of mana with all the procs that I'm triggering and all the effects that I'm triggering. And then if I like have 5 Eyes of Winter saved up through my elemental evocation, and I shoot them all out, that's draining a lot of mana as well. So that's just something to be mindful of. And, you know, I've spec'd back into these points as well because I need the mana regen sustain. But as you saw from the gameplay footage, like at this level with the mana regen that I have currently built in this character and the level of mana that I have in this character, it's still pretty comfortable, and I'm not really chugging ultimate mana flask that much. So, you know, for the affixes on your flask, I would just suggest increased amount recovered and increased amount recovered. The Stone Charm, I think, is probably the best charm. You know, if you have a belt with more charms, great. I would say Guard is probably like the best in slot affix. I think that's a tier 1 Guard affix right there. For the mana suffix, I would probably suggest increased charges. You know, having 120 charges is a lot. So if you ever like, you know, do need to chug this thing 12 times in a row, well, you can. And you know, I rarely use the life flask. I don't think I even used it once in any of the gameplay footage that you saw. And you know, if like you go into an ultimatum, you know, the gain 2 charges, the 0.25 charges per second is useful. And I do think increased amount recovered is probably best in slot. You know, I don't even have that much life, and the like increased amount recovered is effectively increased recovery speed as well, because you're still getting it over 3 seconds. So I think that's really kind of the best in slot prefix there. I think that's about it regarding my gear. My skill gems are a little different than what's in the Mobalytics guide right now, because I don't have 6 links on all of my skill gems. Once I get more 6 links, then I'll be kind of playing musical skill gems a bit to switch things around. So for example, I don't have 6 sockets on my charge staff. I really want to put blind as the 6th socket on the charge staff, so I'm running blind in here right now. Blind does have like a small cost multiplier to it, but ideally what I'm going to want to do is, you know, put blind somewhere else. I'm going to want to put cold mastery and lightning mastery on my elemental expression. That'll significantly increase the damage. Other cool little tech built in is Wind Dancer. You can put inevitable critical on Wind Dancer because you have such high base chance to crit with this build. And so, you know, inevitable Wind Dancer doesn't go off that much because A, you have a high evasion, and you know, monsters just don't hit you that often, but when they do, they will get hurt bad. And why will they get hurt bad? Well, because with just inevitable critical, you end up having like an 81% chance to crit. When I have more sockets on here, there's ways to also make this do more damage as well, with more higher chance to crit. And because when a monster hits me and I crit, that also means that I will be hitting the monster with an elemental expression Icy Wave as well, and that's usually enough to just kill any normal monster that, you know, wants to front on you and wants to hit you. So it's a really nice defensive mechanic. In addition to that, it really buffs your evasion up a lot. So my evasion is, you know, 85% chance to evade. You know, I know that there's content creators out there with really good gear that have a much higher evasion chance than that, but you know, it's good enough. And, you know, my character is going pretty smoothly right now. One decision for you to make is if you want to use Wave of Frost or not. So I have this unset ring to basically run Wave of Frost. If you don't have an unset ring, but you have some other ring that you use due to the stats, then the skill that you're probably going to get rid of from this loadout would be Wave of Frost. So just keep that in mind. Now, alternatively, you can use Storm Wave. I like Wave of Frost because it's a way to kind of like retreat and shoot at the same time quite effectively. Like you go back quite far with just one usage of it, and it's effective at freezing monsters. So it's a way to tactically retreat, freeze monsters that are coming at you while you're retreating, while facing the monster. It's not like, you know, you're running away dodging. You're just looking at the monsters, jumping back and shooting, and then, you know, once they're frozen, you just gap close. You use Hand of Chayula to get right in their face, and then, you know, stick a mark on them, which, you know, blows up a shock nova, and, you know, you put temp chains on them. In terms of the curse that I'm running, I just want to point out, I am running temp chains. I'm not running hypothermia. I'm running temp chains because I want their slows and their freezes and their chills and their shocks. I all want that to last longer, and temp chains helps with that and also slows the monsters down as well. And that with the freeze, that with the maim, that's with all the other debuffs that I have to basically immobilize and lock down monsters is quite useful. It's nice to also have heightened curse on here. So when you have this qualityed up and you have heightened curse, it essentially nullifies the innate reduction of reduced effective, curses from Hand of Chayula. So this is essentially applying to bosses at essentially full strength, which is pretty cool. And when a boss is 25% slowed and then chilled and maimed, like that's some nice quality of life. Of course, bosses don't last that long anyways, because I just drop a Tempest spell in their face and I shoot out my Eyes of Winter and it just kills them within like 2-3 seconds. But yeah, that's how the build plays. That's how it works. And refer to the Mobalytics guide and enjoy the updated loot filter, guys. All right, I'll talk with you later, and I'll post an updated build video probably once I'm done with killing all of the end game bosses. All right, guys, take care. Bye.